Hey everyone, I'm Patrick Jones, and welcome to episode 55 of That Gives Me Anxiety. Ooh, really had to muster the energy for that. I just ate a Chipotle burrito, it weighs you down. Yeah, I gotta take a nap. I feel like I gotta take a nap, but this is a good time for me to record, so I had to knock it out. So if I'm a little sluggish, it's Chipotle. It's Chipotle's fault. I even got it and said I was gonna eat it later. Please. Jamie didn't buy that for a second. She saw right through it. It is also hilarious that I'm just like, oh man, I ate food and now I need to sleep. But I had a great weekend, got a lot of stuff done, and I know, and I can't stress how much we got done. 3 TVs on the wall, Christmas tree in the house, decorated, Christmas decorations around the house, down. Things are cleaned. Had to do a deep clean on the stove. It was getting pretty messy. I hadn't cleaned it in a while properly. Didn't have time for a haircut. Oh my gosh. That is a tough look. For anyone watching on YouTube, I'm so sorry. Hat going back on. But yeah, I'm really excited. The one TV we're just holding, we just had on, stand on the fireplace, blocking the fireplace. But now that's on the wall, we can see the fireplace, which is like, a game changer for the living room. We've just been blocking the fireplace the whole time we've lived here, like since June, with our TV. It's like, oh yeah, we can appreciate the fireplace. So yeah, walking a little taller, feeling good about everything we got done. And the best news yet, I've got a great episode lined up for you. In an effort to make these episodes a little bit shorter, I'm breaking up this interview a little bit into 2 episodes, so part 2 will be next week. But the interview is with a guest I really enjoy having on and enjoy speaking to. Her name is Pallavi Yetur. She's a therapist out there in Los Angeles and also works at a gym called KOA, a gym for mental health called KOA, which is also offering a free month subscription for people who are listening to this. So listen to the end of part 2 next week to get that promo code, which is cool. It's a whole month, and you can take you can watch all these different videos and take all these classes and see if you like it. I've personally done a class and I really liked it. So yeah, it might be something that you want to work into your mental health routine. But before we start chatting with Pallavi, I just want to remind you, if you're liking the show, to please remember to rate and review it on whatever platform you're listening to it on. You can check the show out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, or YouTube. YouTube is where you can see my awful hair that I just unhatted. Oh, there it is again. Oh no. I don't know why I said that like I was constipated. And if you're liking the show and you want to support it and support me, you can make a donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link, which is in the description wherever you're listening. Just a way of giving a tip, almost. Like, hey, Pat, love what you're doing. Love seeing your awful haircuts and the interviews about anxiety. Here's a few bucks. That would be greatly appreciated. Well, all right. I think it's time to go to Pallavi, where we'll be talking about scarcity mentality. Even if you don't know what it is, I'm sure there's going to be something that you can connect with. As always, thank you so much for listening, and enjoy. Joining me again on the podcast. I don't know why I said again. I really wanted to put a lot of excitement because I'm thrilled to have you back. I have Pallavi Yetur coming back on That Gives Me Anxiety. Pallavi, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I loved being on, and I'm so glad to be back.
Yeah, this is great. I don't know why I just spoke at like 400 miles an hour, but
Oh, I'm feeling it. I love
yeah.
the energy.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Well, yeah, today we're going to be talking about scarcity mentality, something that you mentioned to me and frankly to the listeners may be shocking, but not something I really know much about. I'm sure
I will connect with it in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I predict that you might, but I'm happy to explain all of the things that I know about it.
Yeah, awesome. So, just for people who haven't listened to the first episode with you, which I would recommend people going back to, but why don't you introduce yourself again and tell everyone a little bit about Koa?
Yeah, sure. So I am a psychotherapist. I work mostly with individual adults, and I've been in private practice for it's going to be almost coming up on 8 years. Prior to working here in LA, I was in New York City for some time, and then last year joined a mental health startup called Koa, which is basically your gym for mental health. So we are really trying to get people to understand that mental health is a proactive exercise, much like, how we take care of our physical health, and that we need to integrate it into our daily lives, make it a practice. And it's also helpful to do that with others in community rather than feeling like it's all on us alone. So Koa offers a platform and some resources for that. And
Yeah,
my
I took a class with one of your colleagues and I really
Oh,
liked it. Yeah,
yay.
it was
Oh my God,
great.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yay.
I forget their name.
I have another promo code to offer your listeners too this time
Awesome.
to try Koa, so we can talk about that at the end as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
So, scarcity mentality, I'm curious, what is it?
Okay. So there are a lot of different angles that I've seen this kind of looked at. Economically speaking, you might hear it in kind of econ classes or talked about in terms of poverty and being financially having financial scarcity. And basically what a lot of people will talk about when there is resource scarcity like that is that that kind of poverty state can make us feel so preoccupied by a lack of what we have that it impacts our cognitive function, our ability to
Mm,
focus, because, all of our mental resources are being taken up about this anxiety, this worry. I've seen it more so in terms of the work that I do as this sense that people believe that there is only so much to go around. So this could be related to jobs or opportunities or space even. So a lot of people will feel like, okay, if someone else gets something that I wanted or that I desire, that means there's less left over for me. So it's
mm.
like this, there's a finite pie, someone else took a slice, and now there's less of the pie
So,
available.
Republicans.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting because I think that that sort of fear mongering is really effective, right? Because
Mm,
and we can talk a lot more about this because this also comes up in terms of marginalized communities and immigrant experiences. But, if you can really get people to start worrying about, ooh, someone else is encroaching on my territory or someone else is claiming things that are mine, quote unquote, then
mhm.
you can really get people to start acting out of anxiety because they're so freaked out by this there's not enough for me kind of
Yeah. Yeah,
mentality.
that's, I mean, it is scary to think that if you actually believe that there's not enough of whatever you're describing,
Yeah.
you're going to lash out, right? Like an animal backed into a corner kind of thing.
Exactly. It's so true. It's so what you're talking about is aggression. So we're seeing it in like these political circles. It's sort of being weaponized.
Hmm.
And the way I see it a lot when I work with people is in almost a self-aggression. Like we'll take it out on ourselves to the point that we decide to take ourselves out of the running of something. We just sort of bow out altogether. We'll give up because we're like, well, if there's a finite amount of this, like I can't compete, so I'm just gonna give up. So there are a lot of different ways that I talk about how to think about that differently, but that's what I see a lot. And I've also experienced it personally because I hear it a lot from people who are writers or creators because the world sort of tells us like, oh, everybody wants to do this artistic thing and there's not enough room for all of us to do it. And so people will just be like, okay, I'm giving up then. So I work with a lot of people who are artists and they end up feeling that way. I've personally felt it, or I've kind of wanted to bow out because I'm like, well, someone else got this, so there's none left for me. So that it's kind of a fallacy. We don't really know that. We don't
Yeah.
know how much is out there for us. And then by taking ourselves out of the running, we really shortchange ourselves.
Absolutely. It makes me think of about a year ago, I had a gentleman reach out who had another podcast about anxiety and wanted to connect. And I was like, great, like, let's talk about what's working, what's not working, like, let's collaborate. And it really just turned out that, like, he was like, so I hear you do comedy. Like, he was like puffing his chest out.
Oh no.
As if there can only be one podcast about
Yep.
anxiety.
Yep. That's a really important point because I think a lot of what stresses us out about this is the competition.
Mhm.
Because competitiveness can make a lot of people uncomfortable because it does require us to get kind of aggressive, right?
Mhm.
In order to compete, we have to aggress. We have to advocate for ourselves, we have to push.
Mhm.
And people look upon that kind of behavior as ugly or undesirable. We judge ourselves for it, but it's necessary. If we want something, why not go after it? So this sort of, shying away from our aggressive or competitive drives can then have this like backfire effect of kicking up our anxiety more because we
Mhm.
know we want it. We've shut ourselves off from that, and then that aggression recycles internally, becomes more anxiety.
Oh man, on and on it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk? I know you've got a lot on your plate. You've got work, you've got friends, you've got family, pets, you've got the people that you make small talk with at the coffee shop or gym. You've got that bird that you see when you wake up every morning outside your window that you've projected things onto. Look at that bird. Doesn't even love its family. It's always by itself. You do that. Everyone does that. Point is, you've got a lot on your plate. Well, that's why there's Instacart, to take a little bit off your plate. Using Instacart, you search for all your favorite foods and things that you need from the grocery store, all online, all while you're looking at that bird, wondering why it hasn't called its mom. And they deliver it to you. They go to the store and do the shopping for you. And they can deliver it in as fast as an hour. And you can sign up by clicking the link in the description, wherever you're listening or watching. And that's a great way of supporting the show. So it's a great way of supporting this show. It's a great way to make your life a little bit easier, because we all know that you have so much going on, like wondering whether that bird judges you back. So in the early example, it made me think of, in like an impoverished situation, let's say like a kid during the summer who gets their meals from a school,
Yeah.
now doesn't have that, so they can only focus on that, right? That's sort of what you were saying. So then the version of someone taking themselves out of the running, I guess I'm failing to see like how it's the same.
Yeah, it's not the same. I mean, it's different. So there's different relationships that we tend to have to scarcity. So in terms of actual material resources, that's a great example of a kid, who's getting their meals and don't have to think about that for 9 months out of the year. And all of a sudden it's taking up more of their brain space. And they might notice that during those 3 months, they're having a much more stressful time. Maybe they're not able to enjoy their summer. Maybe it's just that they don't feel like they can access themselves as much as they can when they don't have that worry on their plate.
Mm-hmm.
The scarcity mentality that I'm talking about in terms of that more kind of psychically minded, this pie, it manifests a little bit differently, where it's about, what is my deservingness of this thing that I want. There might still be a similar type of obsessiveness. So that's probably what the two different experiences have in common, that there's a preoccupation with the thing that we want and sort of a conflict around getting it or having it. But when we're talking about these less material resources like attention, affection, recognition, opportunity, that starts to feel more like this internal struggle of, where is my place here? Where do I belong here? Have I been embraced? And that's where we can also start talking about those marginalized communities that historically maybe haven't felt embraced or that they have a place. So that's where I see it a lot with people who come from immigrant backgrounds. Those are the people I talk to who tend to relate the most to this. Certainly writers as well.
Mhm.
Immigrant background writers, sort of, that's what happens.
They got the Venn diagram of both. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Does that help clarify?
Yes,
a
it
little bit?
does. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah. For my own like personal, it's like the amount of jobs that I've looked at and like thought I should apply to, and then you start talking yourself out of it. Like,
Yes.
well, someone probably has an extra year of experience or knows somebody there, right? Just
Yes.
you find a way to like self-sabotage when like, what's the harm in just submitting?
You nailed it. You nailed it. That's exactly what I tend to see the most, is how it turns into self-sabotage, where taking ourselves out of the running is that. We silence our own voices, and now the scarcity's gotten worse because we've failed to give ourselves something that we don't feel like we're getting enough of. So yes, it is a self-sabotaging kind of cycle.
Oh man.
Today's episode is sponsored by My Software Tutor. Can Excel be my friend? Do you want a new friend? Thinking about making new friends both makes me excited and sad. So it can be hard to make friends as you get older. And so I feel like sometimes you get surrounded by people. It's like, yeah, I guess we're friends. But also, if you truly connect with someone, you can make new friends as an adult. On both sides of the fence here. So Excel can be your friend, or it could be surrounding you. That's just probably because you don't know it that well. Many people, I've deviated so far from the copy. Let me get back to it. Can Excel be my friend? Many people have wondered this for years. The answer is, yes, it can. That was so much shorter than where I was going with it. All right, let's talk about My Software Tutor. They offer 3 levels of real-time Zoom-based courses with a live instructor. They all deliver practical, functional business skills in a friendly, supportive environment. That sounds nice. I mean, it could be so daunting to learn Excel or make friends. These courses will increase your marketability, whether you're an employee, job seeker, consultant, or contractor. That sounds pretty good. Register at mysoftwaretutor.com and use the promo code POD20 to save. And use the promo code POD20 to save 20% off all registrations.
So these feelings certainly can feel overwhelming, right? That's like, and you can beat yourself up all the way into the ground, right? If you let yourself. So how do you start to change your thought process related to scarcity?
Okay, so I want to bring up something that, like, if folks Google scarcity mentality, they're going to start seeing a lot of this language around abundance mindset. So how to shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I take some issue with this, because if we're essentially saying that scarcity is an extreme that we're buying into that doesn't super reflect reality, then why are we gonna tell people to buy into the other extreme? Because abundance isn't really the reality either. There might not be abundance. And so it's a little bit, maybe we might self-sabotage ourselves the other way by expecting abundance.
Just like toxic positivity.
Exactly. That's exactly, it feels very much in the same family. So that's why I like to talk to people about a reality mindset and just about thinking about, we tend to feel anxious when we don't know, when we're uncertain, when things are unclear, and it becomes easier to just not engage rather than to really get in tune with ourselves about, like, okay, what do I want here, and what would the cost be if I didn't engage with that? As you said, with like a job posting, like the cost of you not applying is that you definitely won't get it. But the cost of applying is you might have to sit through a little bit of the discomfort of your feelings of inadequacy, or how to sell yourself, and doing that kind of more aggressive self-advocacy that's hard. So I look at so many things as a cost benefit analysis, but when we self-sabotage, the cost is usually pretty high.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing I like to talk about a lot is, if we're talking about marginalized communities, for instance, I talked about this a bunch with COA during AAPI Awareness Month, that there's this model minority myth that happens, particularly in the Asian community, I think, where we get pitted against people from other races. Like we are the ones who came here in a different, different type of, like they invited basically immigrants from my parents' background to come here, the high skilled workers. And so now we have to prove ourselves. We have to continue being that in society, right? We're contributing and we are not causing problems or whatever.
Right.
And so then now we're in contrast to the people who are suffering from systemic racism and things like that. So that can kick up scarcity mentality too, where it's like, we're going to make you fight against the other people. It's like the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Like you're fighting against all of the other people of color for the same stuff, but you might have the edge because we like you more. So there's a lot there. And so that's where I talk a lot about solidarity as sort of an antidote to scarcity.
Yeah. I mean, in that instance, it like, the scarcity may be a bit real in a lot of senses, in that, there's still, unfortunately, there's one spot, right? Some people look at diversity as just hiring one person that's not white, right? And so that may actually be real, which kind of goes against like the
abundance,
the initial, the abundance or reality method or model that you were describing. Which is awful. But I do like the idea that you're saying of just like solidarity, because then it's just like, well, if we all do this together, right, a high tide raises all ships kind of thing.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you talked about self-sabotage as one of the ways that I see this happening, but I also see how this really isolates us, right? Because if we're feeling like there's scarcity, then we feel like we have to safeguard everything we have, and we can't let anyone see our cards. And, otherwise someone else is going to go after a thing that we want. And so now all of a sudden we have cut ourselves off from feeling connected to others. And that's going to kick up the scarcity mentality more, because now we have nothing to dispute our belief in this scarcity. So especially if we're talking about different communities of color feeling pitted against each other, the reverse of that is if everyone came together and recognized, like, okay, it's not us. We don't need to fight each other. There's something going on in the system.
It's white people. Yeah. That's a white person.
It's the system, Patrick.
Yes.
Which was made by white people, but yes.
Right. Yes. And it's not it's a metaphorical system that we'd like to fight.
Exactly. We're all living in it. We're all kind of suffering through it in our own way, but we are not always encouraged to find each other and find common ground and solidarity. We are, I think, more, especially in the capitalistic culture, encouraged to battle it out.
Right. For the people at the top's enjoyment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just like your podcast example, right? Like, of course there can be so many voices that contribute to this discussion about anxiety, and you're each going to bring your own value to this topic. But, some people, like that guy, are going to make you feel like, I deserve to be here and you don't. So like, get out of my way.
Yeah. Stop your podcast because
because it's cutting into my audience or whatever.
Right. Every single person doesn't have an issue with anxiety.
Exactly. And someone with anxiety isn't going to try to seek out every resource they can. Right.
Yeah.
One of life's mysteries is that birthdays always find me unprepared, catch me unprepared. I don't go on Facebook as much, so I don't notice them as much. But I want to express my love and appreciation for friends and family. That wasn't part of the copy. I'm just saying it. Year after year, month after month. Even when I see it coming, I'm not ready. Am I a jerk? Yes and no. Why do things have to be so black and white for you? But I've got great news, friends. Introducing monthly card subscriptions from the Cardist Studio. Join the service that delivers the card and the stamp that you'll need to your door. No more errands. Who wants more errands? I don't know why, but I'm starting to think of errands as a kid's name. Errands, go back to bed. Okay, but here's how it works. You choose your categories. From birthdays and celebrations to love and encouragement, or select their full collections and have those thank you notes and just because cards at the ready. Those ones are always so nice. Like when you get a card for doing something and it's just like a small little heads up or token of appreciation, it genuinely makes you feel really good. And best of all, you would never get caught cardless again. Let me repeat, you'll never get caught cardless again. Try to say that a bunch of times in a row. You'll never get caught cardless again. Monthly card subscriptions from as little as $8 per month for the card and the stamp. Delivered to you. TheCardistStudio.com shop subscriptions. And you can use the promo code AnxietyPod for 15% off your originating order.
Yeah.
Well, hearing what you're describing with marginalized communities, it makes it feel like a bit more daunting. How do we help people? Because right, it's one thing to work through your own issues, but like working through a collective set of issues, is it highlighting more stories of people who have done well, or what do you think?
Yeah, I love that question. I think that in terms of solidarity within the community, there's a lot we can be doing to connect with each other. But what you're saying is, if there's a community that's marginalized, how do we lift them up?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's exactly right. Seeking out their stories, stopping sort of the system of marginalization, like stop pushing those communities into the margins and bring them into the collective so that they feel a part of, because that's so much of what scarcity is too, is this sense of deprivation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times that can come from growing up as a kid. Maybe you didn't get as much attention or affection in the home. And then now you've grown up feeling like, oh, I feel a little deprived and I'm constantly seeking a thing that's going to fill that void. Mm-hmm. I've seen this a lot too with first siblings that then have to deal with a second baby coming into the home, right? And then it's like, oh, all of the attention that was on me is now split. I don't have what I had before. And if that isn't properly reassured in the home, that could cause scarcity. So there are
we all have to deal with it, right?
We all have to deal with it. There are a lot of different ways that this can show up. It's pretty universal, even if it feels like kind of an enigmatic idea. But that's why, if we're saying that scarcity is about, I'm not getting seen or heard enough, I feel deprived of really a sense of belonging or a sense that I am being embraced by a community or a society, then that's how we help. We embrace. Mm-hmm. We don't make people feel like they're not worth it. Like we are, this is what's so tough about having anxiety, is that sometimes that really informs how we treat other people, because we're so stuck in ourselves and in our own kind of neuroses. And so it's a lesson that we have to really hold on to, that, the golden rule, we want to be treated the way that we should probably be treating other people. And that is to make others feel as valued as we would like to be feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Treat everyone as Tom Hanks treats people, right? At least we hope.
What a gem.
What a gem, right?
Hey, nice and short. I'd be interested to see if people like them shorter, or you'd want the full interview in one episode. It's kind of nice to have it tighter, right? Well, thank you so much to Pallavi for your time. As always, loved having you on. Before I get to the weird thing that was causing me anxiety this week, I want to remind everyone of my other podcast called Death Space Filling the Void. You can check it out wherever you get your podcasts. Another reminder of the Buy Me a Coffee link. It's just a way to make a donation to the show and help support me making these. Then there's Instacart with a link in the description wherever you're listening, which if you sign up for groceries through that link, you're telling Instacart that this show sent you, which also helps support the show. Then there's My Software Tutor with the promo code POD20 for 20% off your orders. And the Cardist has the new promo code AnxietyPod for 15% off your first order. 15. So, okay. Weird thing causing me anxiety this week. Hanging TVs. I hired someone to help me because I just invent this image in my head that I'm going to put a TV up and it's going to like pull down the whole wall and break the TV. And I mean, it's so much nicer when you get your TVs on the wall. So much nicer. As I roll my eyes, so much nicer. But yeah, was going to do it, but then I finally broke down and like I was getting too anxious about it. So I hired a handyman from my neighborhood who was awesome, great guy, really helpful. And he did it and I just helped him out and now the job is done. See, Pat, you don't have to do everything, right? Sometimes you can ask for help. Nice reminder. Well, thank you so much for listening. Hope you learned a lot and are looking forward to next week's conclusion of the scarcity mentality interview with Pallavi. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.